If you've ever stood by your baby's crib, completely exhausted, feeling like a total failure because they just will not sleep, I need you to hear this. It is not your fault. It's not your parenting. It's biology. In fact, for a brand new baby, the whole idea of self-soothing is, well, it's just not possible.
That's right. Physically impossible. So if you're drowning in conflicting advice, feeling confused and just so tired, please take a deep breath. You've found Sleepypedia, a corner of the internet dedicated to the science of sleep and circadian rhythms, and we're here to give you some clarity. The biggest secret we can share is this. I want you to let that sink in for a second. Your baby isn't being difficult on purpose. Their tiny brain is a massive work in progress, and it's running on a totally different operating system than yours. So in this explainer, we are going to unpack that science. We're going to look under the hood and see what's really going on. So let's start at the very beginning. To really get why your baby's sleep seems so chaotic and unpredictable, we have to look at what scientists consider the gold standard for understanding sleep. It's called the two-process model of sleep regulation. I want you to picture sleep as this constant biological tug-of-war happening inside your baby. On one side of the rope, you've got sleep pressure. That's the physical, undeniable need for sleep that builds up the longer you're awake. And on the other side, you've got the circadian rhythm. That's the internal body clock. Now, in a newborn, these two powerful forces are just not in sync. They're constantly pulling against each other. Well, let's talk about that sleep pressure for a second. Think of it like a balloon. As an adult, you've got this huge party-sized balloon. It takes a good 16 hours of being awake to fill it all the way up so you're ready for a full night's sleep. A baby's balloon? It's tiny, like one of those little water balloons. It fills up super fast in just 90 to 120 minutes, and then pop, it has to be emptied. That's why they need to nap all the time. So what about the other side of that tug-of-war, the internal clock? Well, here's the kicker. It's not installed at birth. It's just not there. For the first 2, maybe 3 months, your baby's brain literally cannot tell the difference between day and night. That super important circadian lock-in, where their brain finally starts to anchor sleep to nighttime, that doesn't really kick in until 3 to 6 months. So yeah, if you're trying to force a strict schedule on a 2-month-old, you're basically fighting their biology. You're working with hardware that isn't even fully online yet. This is their grace period.
So we know their sleep mechanics are totally different. But what about what's going on inside their head? I mean, why can't a baby who is clearly exhausted just relax and go to sleep? It all comes down to the actual architecture of their brand new brain. Let's think of your baby's brain like a house that's being built. The downstairs brain, which is home to the amygdala, is basically the emotional panic alarm. It's fully wired and functional from day one. But the upstairs brain, the prefrontal cortex, that's the part that handles logic, reason, and calming signals. And right now, it's just framing and drywall. It's completely under construction. And here's the most important part. The staircase that's supposed to connect them, it hasn't been built yet. So when that downstairs panic alarm goes off, there's literally no way for a calming message to get down from upstairs and say, "Hey, it's okay, you're safe."
And that's exactly where you come in. There's this amazing process called co-regulation, where your baby literally borrows your calm. You see, their own rest and digest system is way too immature to work by itself. They can't just take a deep breath to slow down their racing heart. Instead, your steady heartbeat, your rhythmic breathing, that is what physically lowers their stress hormones. You are their external regulator, because their internal one just hasn't been built yet. Now, this deep biological need for co-regulation helps explain another really powerful force at play, that primal, undeniable need for closeness. I want to be super clear about this. When your baby cries to be held, it is not manipulation. It is a deep, hardwired survival instinct.
It is so important to understand this difference. That piercing scream the second you put your newborn down in their bassinet, that is not separation anxiety. Separation anxiety is a later developmental step that requires the baby to understand that you still exist even when you leave the room. What you're seeing in those early months is called proximity seeking. It's a primal survival reflex. Evolutionarily speaking, a baby left alone is a baby in danger, and their brain sounds a massive stress alarm. The message isn't, "I miss you," the message is, "I am not safe."
Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, but my friend's baby seems perfectly happy to be put down. And that's where temperament comes into play. Infant sleep science actually has this beautiful framework to help us understand these differences. Dandelions versus orchids. So dandelion babies are generally pretty hardy and resilient. You could say their attachment alarm just has a lower sensitivity. They tend to feel safe more easily. Orchid babies, on the other hand, are much more sensitive to their environment. Their nervous systems are highly reactive, and they are constantly scanning for you, for your presence. They simply need more physical contact to feel secure and keep those stress hormones down. And look, neither one is better or worse. It's just their unique biological wiring. So if you have an orchid, it's not because you've spoiled them. It's because they were literally built to need you more. So all of this brings us to probably the most controversial, most debated topic in all of baby sleep: sleep training. The internet is just full of intense opinions, and it leaves so many parents feeling confused, judged, and guilty. So let's cut through the noise and look at the actual science behind it. This is the big question, right? It's the one that trips everyone up. If a baby physically lacks the brain connections to calm themselves down, then what in the world are we actually doing when we sleep train? Well, the answer lies in a really common but critical misunderstanding of the words we use. This distinction right here changes everything. We have to separate the idea of self-soothing from self-settling. They are not the same thing. Self-soothing is an emotional skill. It's the ability to feel upset, but to know deep down that you're okay. And you know what? Babies can't do that yet. Self-settling, on the other hand, is a behavioral habit. It's simply the physical act of getting back to sleep on your own when you wake up between sleep cycles. And that is what sleep training actually targets. Not emotional regulation, but a learned physical skill. And when it comes to teaching this skill, timing is absolutely everything. Under 4 months old, the brain hardware just is not ready. It's not fair to ask them. But right around 4 to 6 months, this biological sweet spot opens up. Melatonin starts surging at night, their nervous system gets a bit sturdier, and their brain starts to grasp that you still exist even when you're not in the room. This transforms the challenge from a primal fear of being abandoned into a manageable developmental hurdle. But what about the crying? That's the part that really hurts a parent's heart. Here, the science of stress is actually really reassuring. Scientists make a vital distinction. You have toxic stress, which comes from chronic, severe neglect. That is harmful. But then you have something called tolerable stress. This is a temporary challenge that is buffered by the presence of a supportive, loving caregiver. And that's where sleep training, done in a loving home, falls. Think of it less like abandonment and more like the frustration they feel when they're learning to crawl. It's difficult, but it's an important new skill. So I want us to try and reframe this entire journey. Your job is not to fix a baby who is bad at sleeping. Your role is so much bigger than that. You are an architect. You are a brain builder. When you approach it at the right time, with a deep understanding of what's happening in their brain, teaching your baby to self-settle isn't about withholding your love or comfort. It's about giving them the space and the opportunity they need to practice and master a new, incredibly important developmental skill, one that's going to serve them for the rest of their life. Please remember this on those long, hard nights. You're not just desperately trying to get a few more hours of sleep for yourself, though that is important. You are actively taking part in one of the most incredible biological processes there is. You are helping to build a human brain from the ground up. Every single cuddle, every whispered "it's okay," and yes, even every consistent, predictable response during a tough night, it's another brick in that foundation.